Dr. Kevin McHale, Cape Regional. He brings us the injury report, brought to you by Cape Regional Health Systems and Penn Orthopedics, the best of both worlds for a healthier life. For an appointment, call 609-463-CAPE or visit us at caperegional.com/orthopedics. Doc, we're in the Super Bowl, healthy as can be.
Yeah, that's great. That's great luck. I mean, obviously we know the devastating injury to Carson Wentz, but it's great to see Nick Foles stepping up and filling that void. So really exciting time for Eagles fans, that's for sure.
Yeah, man. And, with that, I want to we have an injury. We're going to go down memory lane with an injury to go back to from years gone by here in just a bit. But first, a couple of the actual injuries that are going on. We talk a lot about concussions, Doc. Gronkowski has one. He's had past concussions. He has not reached the point in the protocol where he can get into practice. Now, the 2 weeks here, I'm assuming, gives him a lot better chance to participate in the game on Sunday. But number one, I know you have worked with the Patriots in the past. I'm wondering if you were around Gronk when he's had past concussions, because I think he's missed some time in the past with them. And number two, we know guys are all different, but just looking at the violence of that hit the other day, I mean, he looked woozy. He certainly mouthed like, wow, like it seemed like he looked out of it. So I don't know if you could just look at video sometimes and see the severity of some of these concussions and how they differ. I mean, last week we saw Sendejo. He only missed a week. He was right back out there after getting knocked out of the game the week before for Minnesota. I mean, that one the other day, though, for Gronk, he looked like, it was evident that he didn't know where he was.
Yeah, those helmet-to-helmet hits, or especially those open field kind of hits like that, are obviously high-energy injuries and can definitely lead to some pretty bad concussions. It's interesting with concussions, they're quite variable in presentation, and sometimes it does have a lot to do with a patient's history and the number of frequency or number of concussions they had in the past or how recently they had one in the past. When I was with Gronkowski, he did not have one. I think he had one reported maybe around the time he tore his ACL a few years back, but he actually hasn't had too many of them. That being said, he's a big bruising guy, and he took a big hit, last weekend. At this point of the protocol, we wouldn't expect him to be practicing anyway, even though they're not practicing. He was listed as a non-participant yesterday. But the early stages of the recovery, you're just resting for a day or so, and then doing some light aerobic activity, maybe some light strengthening. The fastest you can get through this protocol is about a 5-step protocol. You need about 24 hours each step. After you advance to that rest period, the light aerobic activity period, the strengthening, then you start doing some drills. And once you tolerate that, you can go into the practice. Once you tolerate a full practice, you can potentially be cleared. Now, progressing through the stages can vary from player to player. If they have symptoms at any one of the stages, then they have to kind of stay on that step a little longer or maybe regress back. Now, unlike Lane Johnson, earlier this year when he had that short week and wasn't able to get back and ended up missing a game, with a 2-week time period, I think there's a very good likelihood that Gronkowski will be back on the field for the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and I know that a lot of people treat concussions differently. Cape Regional, you guys have a program that, because this is such a big topic as we talk about all the time, but there's different ways for these guys to get through it. And I wonder, is it progressing? Is there more things and how to treat these things coming out almost, all like technology? New technology comes out, your phone gets updated all the time. Is that the way concussions are going now?
Yeah, there have been a lot of advances in the way we treat these things. It used to be you just rested a while after you had no headache. You tried it out and you got back out in the field and saw how you did. And now there's a lot more therapy they can do. There's visual stimulation they can do to make sure your visual field is better. You do a lot of cognitive testing. There's a lot of physical therapy where you're just doing different types of aerobic activity just to make sure that you don't have recurring symptoms. But there's definitely a lot more that's available to us to make sure that people are progressing through these stages appropriately. And also to make sure that before they go out in the field and start doing drills, they kind of pass all these earlier steps. The NFL has a nice protocol to follow, and here at the concussion program here at Cape Regional, they actually do a lot of the similar steps until they obviously get to a point where they're ready to get back on the field, and then those young athletes will get back to their high schools or wherever it is they're playing.
Right, you guys have a program for young athletes. I mean, high school guys, kids playing football, soccer, when you hit the ball off your head, two basketball guys collide. If you're a young athlete out there, Cape Regional has concussion programs for people like that.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You know, the initial thought would be like, oh, if I go to the doctor and see them for a concussion, I'm going to be out longer. But actually, if you do all the therapy the right way, you actually get back to play a lot faster. So it's a nice way to get kids back on the field faster, but also in a safe way.
Let's look at the next injury here, which is kind of an odd one. Nobody knew what was going on with Tom Brady here. And when you're talking about Tom Brady, he's at the top of the list of injuries. There was so much mystery around this. Well, it turns out he had this huge gash over his right thumb, and there's kind of some shady pictures of it out there, but it looked like a pretty interesting spot there. But he said that he avoided major injury, and there were some reports that he might have cut into the tendon or some ligaments in that thumb area. So it looked like he was okay, but, man, did he avoid some major injury to that thumb area there?
Yeah, you know, that's absolutely true. I mean, when you're talking about any professional quarterback, let alone Tom Brady, an injury to a throwing hand's that would have a huge impact on his ability to perform at that level. And obviously, there's not a lot of soft tissue between your skin and the underlying tendons that control your thumb. So when you have that type of laceration, you have a lot of bleeding, it's absolutely concerning that the tendon might be involved. If you sever that tendon, typically you need a surgery to get that corrected. You're not talking about getting back in time for the Super Bowl, that's for sure. So he obviously dodged a huge bullet there. It was just the cut itself. You know, they put in a bunch of stitches. They put that nice tape over top of it. And obviously you saw what he did last weekend, able to put up almost 300 yards. So it didn't, hold him back too much.
Ho-hum for him, right?
Yeah, right.
All right, let's go down memory lane a little bit here, because this was an injury back in 2005. Actually, it occurred in 2004 in December when Terrell Owens broke his leg and tore a ligament in his right ankle. He needed surgery, and no one would really clear him to play against the Patriots. A lot of people thought he was nuts, but he went out there, played 62 of 72 plays, 9 catches, 122 yards. But going back to that injury, and here we are all these years later, the Eagles are back in the Super Bowl. I thought it was pretty apropos to bring this back up. Is it amazing that he was able to get out there and perform with the injury that he had?
That was absolutely an amazing feat. I mean, your typical patient, even with a more aggressive rehab protocol, they're still in a boot, just starting to wean out of a boot at that point, putting some weight on their ankle, definitely not doing any significant impact activity. Typically we see players, and these elite athletes might do a little bit more rehab from that early 6 to 12-week time period, but you don't see them starting to even do light drills and really no run until about 4 months out. So for him to go back at 6 weeks and put up the numbers he did, it's pretty impressive. It's funny. I think that there's a lot of reports how he did that against medical recommendations. One of my mentors up at Harvard once said that, you make recommendations for these pro athletes, but they've got a million reasons to do otherwise. They got a lot on the line, and they make these kind of decisions. When you're talking about a Super Bowl, that's a life, once in a lifetime opportunity for most people. So, you do a little extreme things at times.
In today's ultra sensitive over, the concussions, everybody's all worried about all sorts of stuff medically. You think he would be playing in a game like that now with that injury?
I think the concussion's a little bit of a different story, because that you actually need to be cleared by an unaffiliated neurotrauma consultant. Mm-hmm. So if that person doesn't clear you, then you're actually not able to get back. That being said, for these other, musculoskeletal injuries, we see people coming back with fractures that aren't completely healed kind of all the time. People keep pushing the envelope with these Jones fractures, coming back a little sooner. It's not quite healed yet. A lot of times you see a little bit of a higher rate of off-season revision surgeries just to kind of get that fracture to heal a little bit better, because it went back a little bit too soon. And, people keep pushing the envelope. So I wouldn't be too surprised, but 6 weeks is pretty ridiculous, and that was kind of an exception to the rule, that's for sure.
What do you do? The hyperbaric chamber? Is that something that legitimately could speed up the healing process? I mean, is that something that you think, yeah, that's why he got out there?
They use hyperbarics for a variety of reasons, and it does help with circulation and on healing of wounds and things like that. But, at 6 weeks out, I don't really think that was the reason why he was out there. He was able just to play, he had a nice plate and screws holding everything together, and it was giving him enough stability to get out there, and he played through some pain, that's for sure.
That's wild. Great stuff. Trip down memory lane to one of the great, maybe most heroic Super Bowl injury performances of all time. This guy coming out 7 weeks removed from a broken leg and torn ligaments in his ankle. I know the Eagles lost, but 6 catches, 122 yards. You can make the argument that he would have been the best player on the field. Dr. Kevin McHale, Cape Regional Health Systems. and Penn Orthopedics, the best of both worlds for a healthier life. For an appointment, call 609-463-CAPE or visit caperegional.com/orthopedics. Thanks, Doc.
All right, no problem. Looking forward to the game.